Okay, guys, I have a rant, a review, some opinions. If foul language in books doesn't bother you, but people who are bothered by it do, this is probably not the video for you. Because I got stuff to say. Okay, I kind of had an epiphany today, and it's where this whole thing came from. Because I always wonder why I can read a book like Mrs. Polifax. There's John Sebastian Farrell, and that guy has a mouth on him. It's not the most offensive choices, but it's when he's there, you know you're going to have it. And it's not that I think it's okay. It's not that I like it. I actually think it's a really good lesson in how bad company corrupts good morals, because you will notice in Farrell that when he's around, Mrs. Polifax is more likely to let a word drop than when he's not. She is affected by the language others use. And isn't that just the truth? I mean, when you've got kids who grow up in a family where it's not used and they get around other kids where it is, they find it hard not to pick it up. And so it makes sense. And I don't think Gilman had this intention of sharing this and being all, philosophical and like subtle and all the subtext. I think it just is she just is a good writer who writes natural people. And it was probably all very subconscious even, but it's there. And it's kind of strange because I thought that I was most affected by irreverent uses of God's name and, frankly, F. I thought those were the ones that just bothered me the most. And I discovered very recently that it's not. It's the gratuitous use of it there's no point to it except that, we're just going to put it in here because maybe this is how some people speak. My mirror the wind is blowing and my mirror is waffling and it's making me nervous. I may need to shut that window, but I don't want to because it's beautiful outside and I'd like to enjoy it, especially with this rant. So I was listening to The Runaway Family by sound effects, courtesy of the U.S. Navy. You're welcome. Is this where I go D, 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 D? I'm just gonna call it quiet enough now. So, in that, it's by somebody Costello, starts with a D. I can't remember. Starts with a D, last name Costello, but Costello has an E on the end. So it's The Runaway Family. It's a woman and her 4 children in Nazi-occupied Germany. They live in a smaller place. Kristallnacht comes, all the horrible things happen, and then so whatever year Kristallnacht was, this is the year that it's taking place. Although it felt like I heard or read, or maybe it wasn't Kristallnacht, it was like a precursor to it. Maybe that's it. Because it felt like the narrator kept talking about 1933, and I was like, this is really early. This is happening way, way before the, Austrian Anschluss and whatnot. So I think that's kind of interesting. And yes, it has to be way before the Anschluss, because at some point they're trying to get to Vienna. And that means that, that's out of Germany, right? So that means that, yeah. So there's that. But in here, so far, this is a general market historical fiction. And so far, there's been one word. It was F. I was disgusted, but I wasn't bothered by it in the same way I was in another book we're going to talk about, which is my review and my rant, right? And I had to really think about it. And I realized there's a couple of reasons. Number one, it was put in there for a purpose. It was chosen rather than written. And I understand this. I'll get to that in a minute. But I really do understand this. We have, a German in the Nazi regime speaking to her. He is clearly the bad guy. He's not just someone caught up in it. He is like caught up in it. He's embraced this anti-Jew, dirty Jew that they kept talking about. It was horrific what this guy was doing. And he uses this word once. And it has so much punch and impact. Do I like it? No. Did I cringe? Yes. I think I was supposed to. But also, I think with that one word, she showed an awful lot that would have taken a lot more words and might not have had the same impact. It was well chosen. Again, I would prefer it not to be in there. But I can choke it down and suck it up as long as it's not repetitive. And so far, I haven't heard anything since, not anything even close. And so it had impact. I had a friend, very dear friend, who never uses foul language, ever. And we were talking one day, and she said, she called someone, and I believe it was herself, but it's been so long. I can't imagine her doing it at all. So it had to have been herself. Or I think I would remember that she wasn't. But she called someone's behavior that of a female dog. And because she never even spoke unkindly about people, much less used language like that, it had impact. I mean, I paid attention, and she did. It was kind of interesting. She didn't apologize for it, and that too seems a little off for her. I'm not sure. I would have expected that she would have said, excuse my language. That probably was inappropriate. She didn't do it. She never said another thing about it again. It never came up again. I never heard anything remotely unkind from her again. And she was only even talking about it to say, I think I may have reacted badly. This is what I did in this situation, So, I mean, she was just always so very careful with her words, but I will never forget that one time. I would rather do that. I know when I did the Islands books, I made Mallory, if she wanted to have some sort of euphemism, she used the titles of books. She'd be like, Great Expectations. And there was one I really wanted to use. I'm just going to warn you now, this is kind of mildly offensive, so you might want to skip. But I wanted so badly, and I could not bring it myself to do it. And now I'm not going to be able to say the whole thing. Okay, I'm just going to be honest. I will not be able to bring myself to do it, which is one of the reasons I decided I probably shouldn't write it, right? But when someone was being a jerk, I wanted her to say, don't be a Moby. And I couldn't. And I almost left it, don't be a Moby. But even that, I couldn't do it. But I wanted to so badly. There are other ways to express yourself. But here's the deal. Sometimes I wonder, and I'm speaking as a Christian, and so this is a little different, But sometimes I wonder if there aren't appropriate alternatives to swearing. Is that the real problem? We think that we need an alternative to something bad rather than to choose to do what is good. So, it's like, some people get really upset about this thing or that thing, and it's a milder version, and other people's do, this thing or this thing. Okay, all the things, right? But maybe the point is we're not supposed to have an alternative. We're supposed to remove the temptation to have something to say when we're frustrated or whatever. And instead, look to God to control us. Okay, maybe that's the point, but that's not what I'm here for. I just had to throw that in there. But as a Christian, I'm not supposed to let filthy communication come out of my mouth, which is why I didn't do the Herman Melville. Then I run across it used I think just once in that McMaster's Guide to How to Murder Your Employer or whatever. Funny book. It shouldn't be. I should not have cracked up as much as I did in that. I mean, basically I'm rooting for the bad guy. I'm rooting for the murderer when you're reading this book. There's a problem. But what got me the most in that one, and what really convicted me the most later, there was one foul word. It was F, and it was used hilariously. Guys, these things ought not so to be. And what verse is that? It's Paul. I know it's Paul. My brethren, these things ought not so to be. I can't remember. Unless it's James. No, it's in James somewhere. It's in James. Out of the same mouth produces blessings and cursings, my brethren. Hey, is it applicable or what? I didn't even plan that. Okay, then this is how Shatona's brain does or does not, depending on your opinion, work. So, I thought that it was the amount of language in a book that that made me able to swallow it or not. I don't expect people who are not writing as Christians or to Christians to write a book that follows scriptural guidelines of no filthy communications coming out of your mouth or your fingers, right? Your mind, however you want to put it. And don't get me wrong, there's that is there, but he's just over there, they're just zonked out. It just cracks me up. But it's not that. It's the casual use of it with no point to it, and the frequency. You know, so far in this other book, I'm in chapter, I don't know, I can't remember, but I think I'm about halfway through the book. And there's this one use, I don't imagine that I will see it again. If I do, it'll be far into it, and it'll just be, again, one more time or something, because this author seems to know how to use something inappropriate to make an appropriate point. I can give her that. I don't want it. I really don't. But, you know, it's there. And again, like with Mrs. Polifax, I don't like it. Sandor. That guy says what the H every other minute. I mean, it's just like, it's too much. It's too much. But I can choke it down in a way that I can't choke down. If Dorothy Gilman claimed to be a Christian author writing Christian fiction, I'd have checked the book. And this is where this all comes. So I read last year's, I think it's Vera Wong's Guide to How to Solve a Murder or something like that. It's Vera Wong and murder. It was hilarious. I loved that book. I love that character so much. There was language in it. There was more than I like. But it wasn't so over the top that I was too concerned. As a matter of fact, I was a little hopeful because I've noticed it's not, obviously, 100% guaranteed, but in TV shows and often in book series, the first one is the worst. And I almost, like the pilot episodes, sometimes they're full of stuff. And you're like, I don't think I'm going to watch this. And someone says, watch the rest. It doesn't show up again. And sure enough, it doesn't, you know. The first one can be smutchual. It can be full of language. And you're just like, yeah, I turned that off. I couldn't watch it. And someone says, you know what? I missed the pilot. I started with one, went back to the pilot, and you can't tell that it's the same director because they're just so very different. Trust me, try it. I try it, and yeah, it's not a problem. That's very, very common with shows and also with book series. Book series seem to be a little less that way. It almost feels like it's like a sharp divider. They're either less or they're way more. It feels like, and I don't think that's true, but that's how it feels to me when I run across it. They don't do the whole pot boil thing. They, put the frog in the pot and slowly heat it up. It's like, the frog was in the pot and now they just throw it into the boiling one and here you go, got scalded. Oh well, tough luck for you. I mean, that's what it feels like when series do this. And it definitely felt a little like that. And maybe I'm just not remembering well. But it feels to me like the second book, which is Vera Wong's Guide to Snooping on a Dead Guy. It came out April 1st, and I listened to it on April 1st. I did not go to bed until it was done. The narration on that is absolutely brilliant. I feel like I know Vera Wong. I want to meet her. I want to, just... Well, for one thing, I want to taste her food. I'm just saying. But also, I just want to crack up at her. And the author does foul language, in this book in a way that is, it fits the character. I won't pretend it doesn't, but it doesn't need to be in there. What happened to my clock? Why does it say it's 5 o'clock? I don't know. Anyway, in this one, and I think it was probably the same in the first one, but it really showed up a lot in this one. As far as Vera, someone will say something, something, something F, and she will say, why you say, and then she says it again. And so you get it twice for one gratuitous one. You now technically get two for absolutely no purpose. It's funny. And I learned with that McMaster's Guide, right, that funny is not, I don't want to laugh at inappropriate language. I don't want to find it funny. But when Vera is just like totally confused, and I'm not really laughing at the language in that moment, I'm laughing at her, but I think it does something subtle in the synapses, and I don't want it to. But this one had, her son was in it more. And her son has a strong tendency toward irreverent uses of God's name and foul language and saying things that make her repeat. Okay, so before I get into this book and talk about the book, I think I'm done with the series, and that breaks my heart because it is so, so funny. It reminds me of how I felt with the Sherry, her name is Sherry something, and I'll put a book up, but her name is Sherry something, and she wrote like she created it's almost like this woman created Sherlock Holmes as a someone so that she could solve mysteries. And the first one opened up with a very inappropriate scene, and I almost didn't keep reading, but it cut before I realized what was going on, and there was a purpose to it that wasn't good. I'm not going to say it was good, I'm not pretending, but oh man, I can see the name. It's driving me nuts. I get so caught up on these little details that mean nothing. Anyway, but then you go through the series and this wasn't there anymore. And it was all about what's going on. Then she and someone end up having that very intimate relationship, but we're not given it on the page. So I kept reading. I had to stop because they still kept it off the page. So it should be okay, right? I'm not expecting these people to behave like Christians if they're not claiming to be Christians. So I can choke past knowing that those things are over there. But no. She has to write to him with details of their stuff. At which point I might as well have been in the room. I don't want it. Had to stop reading. And in the same vein, but with language, we've done this with Vera Wong. All of a sudden, I can't speak. I feel like Krista. I'm like, Vera Wong. I think I have to be done because, Dad burn it, there are tons and tons and tons in this book, I feel like there's significantly more. Not so much that about the time I'd be like, okay, I'm done. And then we'd have this long stretch where there's nothing. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to finish this book then. And then there'd be a little stretch. And I'd be like, and I mean, the stretch isn't like lots on every page, but there's, a page here, skip 5 or 6 pages, and there's one there, and skip, 10 pages, and there's one there. And then you wouldn't have anything for a bit. And I just like, and I'm guessing on pages. This is a total guess because I was listening. And sometimes it's really strange. Sometimes listening to someone with an accent means that I don't hear it as strongly, particularly a British accent. I can miss foul words in a British accent when I'm listening, if it's read by someone with that accent. But this particular accent, and then there's either American or Chinese, basically. Those are your 2 options. Those 2, it jumps out and it just slaps me upside the head. And so I might be hearing more than I would have in some other book. I don't know. But it was bad, and I almost several times shut it. And I'm not sorry I didn't, because, and here we go. This is the book. I think I'm going to manage to keep spoilers out, but okay. I really liked the first book. I liked the plot. I liked what was going on. I liked all the things. I liked the fact that the whodunit had meaning, even though it was wrong. I liked that it wasn't just gratuitous, okay? This book, however, it has lots of rich depth. There are so many layers to it, and it's really dealing with some very difficult, very tough stuff. And I kept doubting myself as to what I thought it was. It was very strange. The very first time one of the characters mentioned something, I was like, no way. It's gotta be, though. No way. And I kept going back and forth. And we get a little further, and then something switched. And I was like, no, it can't be. And then I'm like, no. But before the no way moment, she had said this. And if that's the case, then the no way is right and this is off. And so then I'm like, okay, so what brought it to this? And I was doing these things. There's so much going on in this. You have a girl who's going to the police station to report someone missing and can't bring herself to do it. And Vera Wong has been there, has brought food to I don't remember why, but she's brought food to them. And she talks to this girl, brings this girl back to the tea room, gives her tea, gets her talking, and says, she's like considers herself the world's greatest detective because she solved this murder, right? And she's a terrible detective. I mean, really, she really is. Her instincts are always wrong. She's always accusing the wrong person or coming up with the wrong reason. Sometimes they're wild and crazy. Just in this one, there's this one, she's like, it's a cult. And she's like, that's it. That's why he wanted to leave the cult and he didn't leave, because basically you've got a guy who is found dead. It looks like suicide. And the police are just going to let it go. And she starts looking into this guy who had been an influencer. She keeps going back and back and back and back, trying to find out what's going on with this, and she can't find the answers. She comes up with these crazy theories. She does all these things, and it's all wrong. I mean, can I just say, Vera as an influencer is hilarious. It was genius. Do you want to go outside? Oh, you just want to go bark at the dog. You go bark at the dog? You can bark at the dog. Okay. Let's go. I think someone must be walking down the alley. They want to do the bark thing. So they're going to do the bark thing, and we're going to be serenaded. You're welcome. Yeah. Anywho, it's a good story. There's so much richness, and there's so much depth. And there's just so much inappropriate language that I don't think I can listen to another one. And I'm sad about that. Now, will I be watching to see if another one comes out, if people go, oh, hey, this one has less, will I be watching all of that? Yeah. How will I rate this thing? I don't know. Because without that foul language, she keeps them clean. I'll give her that. She keeps them clean. But without that foul language, this would be 5 stars all the way. And I try really hard not to take away ratings from people for stuff that they didn't promise wasn't in there. I really do. But it's too much for me. I can't. It's kind of like Letters from Sigh. It didn't promise not to have what it had. It handled what was going on really well. Inappropriately, absolutely, there's inappropriate stuff in there, but it handled it really well in most ways. But there was this one thing, and it just violated my conscience. And because it violated my conscience, I could not give that book 5 stars, despite the fact that there was a lot about it I loved. And yeah, I can't give this book 5 stars. There's no way. But it was so much more than the last one that I don't know if I can give it 4. But I think giving it 3 would be an injustice, because I think she's done a brilliant job. It's a great book. It just needs a lot of black washi tape. I don't know. Once upon a time, a single word, I would have shut a book. And that meant, I'm reading The Harvester right now. I'm pretty sure there's a word in there already in chapter 2-3. I think it's 1. So, I mean, sometimes I will talk to Christians in other countries who do not have the same objections to the same words that I do. Part of it is what a particular culture has decided is or isn't offensive. And I've had people, I don't know what to do about that, because I've had people say it's just words, doesn't mean anything. And one of the gals who said that to me is very consistent about being offended by things that could be perceived as, not are generally accepted as, but could be perceived as racist. And I understand that. I'm not arguing that. But when I'm talking about why does F have to be used like a valley girl like, she's like, oh, they're just words, they don't mean anything. And I'm like, wait a minute. So those words don't mean anything. We should just ignore their use. But these words over here, we've determined do mean something. They're not just words people are using, even though they may have just been using them, have no idea that this could be offensive to anyone at any time. But now they are put into an evil camp because someone considers that word to be racist, even though a group of people would have no idea. Wait, what? No, words have power, they have impact, and they matter, which is why I don't want certain ones in my book. That one by Costello, The Runaway Family, I don't like that word in there. I don't want that word in there. But it has impact, and it was used for that purpose. It's obvious it was used for that purpose. Because you get that far into a book and there's only one word, and it's a really foul, vile one spoken by a very foul, vile person doing very foul, vile things to innocent people. Yeah, it packs a punch. But I'm going to miss Vera Wong. I want more Vera Wong. She's hilarious. And if I could write Chinese culture well, I'd write my own Vera Wong because she's a hoot, and I would do it for my own fun. I mean, I would probably never publish it because, you know, there's somebody out there who's already done something like that. But Dad Burnett, she's funny, and I enjoy her. I like her take on life, and she just, you know, she started off in the beginning of that first book. She was a little depressed, and it reminded me like the beginning of Mrs. Polifax, where she's just a little depressed and just, you know, what is my meaning of life? And for Mrs. Polifax, she goes and volunteers to the CIA. For this gal, she finds a dead guy in her tea room, and everything goes from there. And both of them kind of like, you know, meet people and reinvent themselves, if you will, and gain new purpose in life. And it's in that sense, they're very similar. And both of them have some language in the books, but Mrs. Polifax's don't offend me in the same way that Vera Wong does. And I know part of it is some of the particular word choices. That is definitely part of it. But I feel like in Vera Wong, there's some put in there for gratuitous humor, and some of it for just casual. Some of it's just casual. Whereas in, like with John Sebastian Farrell and Sandor, it's clearly a part of their characterization. I still don't like it, but you can tell the difference because you go along and you don't hear anybody else saying anything inappropriate, but those guys will. And I'm sure once in a while there's somebody else, but those are the ones I remember because they're the ones that is part of their character. Do I like it? No. Do I want it? No. Can I choke them down? Yeah, because there's a point to it that I don't agree with, but there's a point to it. But also B, they are mild. And C, they aren't the main character. It's not throughout the whole book. And that is another thing that I just realized is that it is evenly sprinkled through this book. It's not just these little patches that we can, if I wanted to on the Polifaxes, when John Sebastian Farrell starts talking, I could flip the page and then keep reading the story. I would be able to figure out what he had said and I wouldn't have to read it. It's kind of like a smutty scene in the middle of a book. You just turn the page and you can keep going. You can get a feel for, you know, anything that might have been said that we need to know. You'll get it later. This is too evenly sprinkled. It's like someone who wove an entire smuttual scene through the whole novel, and there's no way to get the novel without reading the scene. It's more like that with this book, and I'm sad. I'm so bummed. So I gotta know, has anyone else read both of them? Am I remembering wrong, or was this one more? And am I making any sense with why it's bothering me? You know, to me today, that juxtaposition between Vera Wong and the F's used in there, and also McMasterson's with the one, and they're funny, most of it, and I don't think it should be, but then versus this one illustrating, it was chosen instead of just written. Am I making any sense there? Is my brain working? I don't want more of it. I don't want to become desensitized to it. I don't think I'm supposed to. And it says, let no filthy communication come out of your mouth. Well, if you don't put it in, it can't come out. And I don't think I'd ever be tempted to use language like that. I never have been tempted, but can you desensitize yourself into not caring? I think you can. So anyway, very sad about that book. Very sad. I will probably just mention it in the month wrap up. I'm not going to give a review again because there's nothing else I can say about it that isn't spoilery. And so, yeah. But I cannot recommend it because of the language used. It's not even language that I can say, well, okay, whatever. It's just no. It's just no. That clock is really bothering me. So I'm going to say, see you Thursday, Friday. It's supposed to be Friday. Working on getting this down. I'll see you Friday with probably, I don't know, something. And happy reading. I'm going to go fix that clock.